This is Mr. Akash Vasan Nisarga, lecturer, Department of Chemistry, KLS Kokri PU College of Commerce and Science, Belgaum. Students, in today's class, we are going to learn about the N-type semiconductor and P-type semiconductor. N-type semiconductor are those semiconductors which are doped with suitable elements of higher valency. Example, silicon doped with the phosphorus, arsenic and antimony. Whereas p-type semiconductor are those semiconductor which are formed by doping intrinsic semiconductor with the suitable elements of lower valency. Examples, boron, aluminum, gallium, etc. Now, let us study the differences between the n-type semiconductor and a p-type semiconductor. N-type semiconductor, they are formed when silicon is doped with the electron-rich impurity like group 15 elements. In p-type semiconductor, they are formed when silicon is doped with the electron-deficient impurity like group 13 elements. Second difference, in n-type semiconductors, the conduction is due to the negatively charged electron, whereas in p-type semiconductor, the conduction is due to the positively charged holes. Example for n-type semiconductors are phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, bismuth are used for doping, and the p-type semiconductors are boron, aluminum, gallium, indium are used for doping. Now, let us try to understand how the conduction actually take place in semiconductors. So, in below this, there are two diagrams. The first one is of n-type semiconductor and the second one is of p-type semiconductor. So, in n-type semiconductor, the semiconductor is of silicon and the silicons are having 4 valence electron in its valence shell. So all these black spheres are of silicon where its 4 valence electrons are overlapped with the neighboring 4 valence electron of silicon and forming 4 covalent bond. So you can see here, this is first covalent bond, second, third, fourth with the neighboring silicon atom. But when the doping take place by using the group 15 elements like nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic. So now we are taking the phosphorus as a dopant. So when the phosphorus is doped into this silicon semiconductor, the phosphorus belong to group 15 family and the phosphorus is having 5 valence electron in its valence shell. So out of 5 valence electron, the 4 valence electrons are overlapping with the 4 valence electron of neighboring silicon atoms and forming 4 covalent bond. So this red sphere is of phosphorus. It is forming 4 covalent bond with the neighboring 4 valence electrons of a silicon. But the 1 valence electron is remain as it is. And due to this electron, the conduction take place in n-type semiconductor, and the conduction is due to the electron, and this electron is negatively charged particle, and therefore this type of semiconductor it is called as a n-type semiconductor, where n stand for negative, that is negatively charged electron. Whereas in case of p-type semiconductor, in p-type semiconductor the conduction is due to the positively charged holes. Let us consider the similar example of silicon semiconductor. The silicon semiconductor, when it is doped with the group 13 elements like boron, aluminum, gallium and indium. So group 13 elements are having 3 valence electron in its valence shell. All these 3 valence electrons forming 3 covalent bond with the neighboring silicon atom, and one of the lobe is remaining vacant because boron is having only 3 electrons, so it can form 3 covalent bond with the 3 neighboring silicon atom, and the fourth orbital or lobe remain vacant. And due to this vacancy the conduction take place, and therefore it is called as a p-type semiconductor. So conduction in case of p-type semiconductor, it is due to the holes, where holes contribute to the conduction. So the migration of holes causes the conduction in p-type semiconductor. So it's very easy. So once again I will revise this. In n-type semiconductor, the electrons, due to the electrons, that is free electron, the conduction take place, whereas in case of p-type semiconductor the conduction is due to the migration of holes which appear as though they are positively charged. The vacant space is nothing but positively charged, and therefore it is called as a positive type semiconductor or p-type semiconductor. Now let us study the magnetic properties in solids. Every substance has some magnetic properties associated with it. The origin of these properties lies in the electrons. Each electron in an atom behaves like a tiny magnet. Its magnetic moment originates from two types of motion. First one, it's orbital motion around the nucleus, and the second one, it's a spin around its own axis. On the basis of their magnetic properties, substances can be classified into 5 categories. The first one is paramagnetic, second one diamagnetic, third one ferromagnetic, fourth one antiferromagnetic, and fifth one ferrimagnetic. So the magnetic properties or the magnetic moment originate from two types of motion. As we know that every substance is having the atom, an atom consisting of nucleus. So let us consider the atom, and this is the nucleus of that atom, and around the nucleus the electron is revolving in a particular orbit. So when the electron is revolving in a particular orbit, such type of motion will create the magnetic moment, and the electron is revolving in the orbit, and therefore this type of magnetic moment is called as an orbital magnetic moment. When the electron is revolving around the nucleus, in this diagram you can easily observe that this is your nucleus and this is your electron. The electron is revolving around the nucleus. While it is revolving around the nucleus, the electron also revolving around its own axis. So electron is revolving around its own axis. So this also causes the magnetic moment, and therefore such type of magnetic moment is called spin magnetic moment. So there is two types of magnetic moment. The first one is a orbital magnetic moment, when the electron revolving around the nucleus in a particular orbit, that time it causes orbital magnetic moment. And when the electron revolving around the orbit along with its own axis, such type of motion or such type of magnetic moment is called as a spin magnetic moment. So there are two types of magnetic moment. The first one is orbital magnetic moment, and the second one is a spin magnetic moment. And due to these two magnetic moment only, we can categorize the substances as a paramagnetic, diamagnetic, ferromagnetic, ferrimagnetic, and antiferromagnetic based on the orbital magnetic moment and the spin magnetic moment. And now let us study one by one. The first one is a paramagnetic. These are those substances which are weakly attracted by the magnetic field. It is due to the presence of one or more unpaired electrons. Example: oxygen, copper 2 plus, iron 3 plus, etc. So paramagnetics are those substances when it is kept in a magnetic field, it is attracted weakly towards the magnetic field, and this is due to the presence of one or two unpaired electron. So if you consider oxygen, in oxygen molecule, there are two unpaired electrons are present, and due to those unpaired electron, it is a paramagnetic. So the paramagnetic nature of the substance is due to the presence of unpaired of electron. The second one, diamagnetic. These substances are weakly repelled by the magnetic field. Diamagnetism is shown by those substances in which all the electrons are paired and there are no unpaired electron. So, example: water, NaCl, benzene, and etc. In water, you will not get any unpaired of electron. In NaCl, you will not get any unpaired of electron. Same like benzene. So no unpaired electron is present in a water, NaCl, and benzene. All electrons are paired, and due to this, these substances do not show magnetic property. These substances are weakly repelled by the magnetic field, means they will show the repulsion because of the pairing nature of the electron. If it is having the unpaired electron, then those substances can be called as a paramagnetic, but if it is having the pair electron, then the substance will show the diamagnetic property. The third one is ferromagnetic. These are those substances which are attracted very strongly by the magnetic field. So ferromagnetic are those substances which are attracted very strongly by the magnetic field. In ferromagnetic substances, metal ions are grouped into small regions called domains. Each domain acts as a tiny magnet. However, domains are oriented randomly and such that their magnetic moments are cancelled. When substances are placed in the magnetic field, the domains gets oriented in the direction of the magnetic field, and due to that it is strongly magnetized, and therefore ferromagnetic substances are attracted very strongly by the magnetic field due to the domains, where domain gets oriented in the direction of the magnetic field. For example, iron, cobalt, nickel, and chromium dioxide. These are the examples of ferromagnetic substances. Antiferromagnetic. They have equal number of parallel and antiparallel magnetic dipole, resulting in a zero net dipole moment. Example: manganese oxide. So यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो एंटी फेरोमैग्नेटिज्म, दे हैव इक्वल नंबर ऑफ पैरेलल एंड एंटी पैरेलल lines, and therefore their net dipole moment is zero, and therefore they are not attracted by the magnetic field when the substance is placed in the external magnetic field. Therefore such type of substances are called ferromagnetic substances. Perimagnetic. They have unequal number of parallel and anti-parallel magnetic dipole, resulting in a net dipole moment. Example: magnetite and ferrites, etc. So that is all about the magnetic properties of the substances. Now we are going to solve some numerical problems on the density. So we are knowing the density formula, that is D is equal to Z into M upon A cube into Avogadro number, where Z is the number of particles present in a particular crystal lattice, M is atomic mass, A is age length, and N is Avogadro number. So let us try to solve the problems one by one. So in examination they may ask the problem for 2 marks. So if you write the formula with the correct substitution, you will get 1 mark, and the final answer with the correct unit of a density, you will get another mark. So for density problem you will get 2 marks. So let us solve the problem now. The first one, silver forms a CCP lattice, and X-ray studies of its crystals shows that edge length of its unit cell is 408.6 picometer. Full stop. Calculate the density of a silver. The atomic mass of silver is given, that is 107.9 U. Now in this problem, first of all we have to see what is given. The atomic mass of the silver is given, that is 107.9. The edge length is given, that is A is equal to 408.6 picometer. So the edge length is given in a picometer, that we have to convert first into centimeter, because our unit of density is gram per centimeter cube, and therefore we have to convert the picometer value into first centimeter. So it's quite easy. You have to consider first 408 picometer is equal to 408 into 10 raised to minus 12 meter. Later on you can convert this into 4.08 into 10 raised to minus 10 meter. Now convert this finally into 4.08 into 10 raised to minus 8 centimeter. So we are converting 408 picometer into 4.08 into 10 raised to minus 8 centimeter. So this is very important. So students, you have to remember this. You have to convert the picometer into centimeter before substituting in this formula. So 1 picometer is equal to 10 raised to minus 12 meter. So first you have to convert this into centimeter, then only you have to substitute in a formula. So it's a very easy. Now we are having the CCP crystal structure. CCP is equal to FCC. So we know that the number of particles present in a FCC, it is 4. So the value of Z is 4. The capital M is, it is already given in the problem, that is 107.9 U, and edge length A is equal to how much? 4.08 into 10 raised to minus 8 centimeter. Now all these value we have to substitute in this density formula. So substitute the values. D is equal to 4. So there are 4 particles present in a face center cubic unit cell into molecular mass of the silver, it is 107.9 divided by A cube, that is edge length raised to cube 4.08 raised to 3, and 10 raised to minus 8 raised to 3 is equal to 10 raised to minus 24. So it is 10 raised to minus 24 is given. Now Na, that is nothing but Avogadro number. So Avogadro number is 6.022 into 10 raised to 23. So this is constant for every problem. Now simplify the D is equal to 431.6 divided by 40.899, and density is equal to, finally the density you will get, that is 10.5528 gram per centimeter cube. So if you write the answer in a proper unit, that is gram per centimeter cube, then only you will get the full 2 marks. Otherwise you will not get, otherwise you will lose the marks. If you write only answer, then you will lose 1 marks. So this is how you have to solve the problem. The second one, X-ray diffraction studies shows that copper crystallizes in an FCC unit cell. So the cell is again FCC with the cell edge of, that is edge length is given, is 3.6 into 10 raised to minus 8 centimeter, full stop. In a separate experiment, copper is determined to have a density 8.92 gram per centimeter cube. So here density is already given. Calculate the atomic mass of a copper. So we have to find out atomic mass of a copper. So we have to find out the m, the value of m. So first thing, what we have to do, we have to rearrange the formula of a density. So density we have to rearrange. M is equal to d, it is already arranged, you can see here. M is equal to d into a cube Na upon z. So substitute the values. See, the edge length is already given into centimeter, so no need to convert it. So directly we can substitute in the formula. So m is equal to 8.92 into 3.6 raised to cube into 10 raised to minus 24 into 6.022 into 10 raised to 23 upon 4, because the cell is FCC, so there are 4 particles are present, so the value of z is 4, is equal to 250.61 upon 4, so m is equal to 62.65. So the molecular mass of a copper is 62.65 unified. So you have to write down the unit U, that is unified mass. So one time they may ask to find out the density, sometime they may ask to find out the molecular mass, also they can ask to find out the Avogadro number or edge length. So it is very quite simple, you just have to rearrange the formula. If they ask the density, then directly you can use the density formula. If they ask the molecular mass, then you have to rearrange the formula. That's it. So remaining problems we can study in the next class. Thank you.